welcome everyone to our Berlin Tableau user group meeting, the first one in 2022. And hopefully very soon we'll be able to do this in person again here in Germany, in Berlin. But for the time being, well, there's still a restriction in place. So let's do this virtually. And we are very, very happy to have Tableau Zen Master Sam Parsons on the line today, who's going to show us a few tips and tricks about his Tableau Zen Master journey. But before we get there, let's just introduce ourselves. That is my colleague Diana Bossens, who's on the screen there, and myself, Ingo Levin. We are hosting the Berlin Tableau user group. We've established, I think, 2013, so quite a while already. We've usually had regular meetings every month or every other month here in Berlin in person. Nowadays, it's like we all know, mostly on Zoom, but hopefully when the situation is calming down soon, then we'll be able to have regular meetings here in Berlin as well. It's a great opportunity to network, to meet other Tableauers, and also just to ask questions to your fellow Tableau users or experts. But we found this a great opportunity, a great place to really learn about business intelligence, learn about the specific stuff of Tableau, learn about data integration, and actually get to know people who work in that space who might be able to help you out at a later point in time. So I encourage everyone to follow our feed on Splash, right? So just subscribe to our page so you'll be notified whenever we post new updates to new events. And now I'd like to hand over to Juliana to present Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Inga. And yeah, hello from Berlin and welcome to our Tableau user group. My name is Juliana and I'm co-host of Tableau user group here in Berlin. And we have today a very special guest, and I personally have been waiting for this very long time. And I'm very happy to have Sam Parsons today as a guest. So Sam is Tableau Zen Master. He's also Senior Analytics Consultant and Viz Pedigree. Last year, he became one of the finalists of Iron Viz and has inspired many Tableau fans with his work. I really admire his talent in data analysis, data storytelling, and design of data visualization. And if you had a chance to look at his work, this is just a great class, how Sam combines Tableau and Adobe Illustrator and how he creates dashboards and with his both technologies. And yeah, literally every dashboard, it is just state of the art. And yeah, today's session is for those who want to learn from the best. Today, it is all about tips and tricks on data visualization and what role does participation at Iron Viz play in this. So please welcome Sam Parsons.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very kind of you. Okay, I'm going to just present my screen. Hopefully we can get started.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good. So let me just do one thing, turn myself off. There we go. Right. Thank you very much for inviting me along today. It's my first time, I think, talking to the Berlin user group. I'm very honoured to be here, and that was a lovely introduction, far kinder than it needed to be, but thank you. Today I'm going to be talking to you all about one of my subjects that I love, which is Iron Viz, and it's obviously something that recently I am known for. The ultimate guide, that might be a bit presumptuous, but let's see how it works. I am going to just flip through if my controls will work. There we go. As Dilyana, thank you, very kindly introduced myself. I'm Sam Parsons, Senior Analytics Consultant for Viz Pedigree, and that's my Viz Pedigree avatar there on screen. If you see anybody in the Tableau community with these avatars, you know that they are from Viz Pedigree. I'm Tableau Zen Master currently, and last year I was the runner-up of the last Iron Viz final. Sad times for me. But this is what I look like, if you care about that. So what are my credentials to talk to you about Iron Viz? What is my pedigree? What's my history with this competition? I'm going to be very honest with you here in my when I run through this history of mine, and I'm going to show you my failures and my successes. So I started Tableau in 2018. At that time, I decided that I wasn't quite skilled enough to enter Iron Viz in that year. I actually first entered Iron Viz in 2019 for the European Iron Viz competition, the qualifier, which was on a subject of energy and sustainability. There's a big cross there next to that because I started working on it, but I failed to submit anything. And this was the Viz that I was working on. It was very long form, lots of imagery, but very little data. And the reason for that was, and the reason I scrapped it was because it was a very technical subject, and that technicality, the technical side of things, as I was doing the research, I was reading a lot of scientific papers about sustainability and fossil fuels and all of this stuff, and I just didn't feel very well placed to present that data. So I decided to call a stop on it. I didn't want to present something incorrectly. So I didn't complete that Viz. I followed it up in that year with the global feeder. So here we can see that one's called a qualifier, one's called a feeder. A qualifier is a single competition to get to the final, so the top 3 go through in that single competition. Whereas in the global competition before COVID hit, we had 3 feeder rounds in the year, and only the top Viz in that year, or the top person, would go through to the final. So you get 3 finalists, 1 from each of those feeder rounds. This was a feeder round on agriculture, and I came second in my very first completed Iron Viz. And this was the Viz that I had created. I could give you just a sense, even though it's a bit grainy, of what I was doing there. I then followed that up with a second feeder round entry. This time the subject was music, and I came 6th in that one. So 2 out of 3 came top 10 positions, which is quite nice. And this was the Viz that I did in that one. This was about music, but I looked at music that has been sent into space on the Voyager probes. I had a lot of fun doing this one. A lot of sort of extending sort of my design side of me. And then I didn't follow up the final feeder for 2019. I was a bit too busy for that competition. And then I had to wait till 2020, which was back to the qualifier. So 1 competition, top 3 go through to the final, because COVID had hit at that point. And so the competition had changed its sort of structure. So 2020 was on health and wellness. I didn't get anywhere near. This was the Viz that I was working on. And it's very widescape, this Viz. The idea behind this was that I was going to look at health and wellness, happiness around the world. And I was trying to build in Illustrator representations of different regions around the world. And it was actually going to end up trying to be a 360 sort of Viz that connected the front and end. So the idea was that you would travel around the world through this Viz back to the start, essentially. But I got nowhere near, as you can see. So I scrapped that one. Last year, 2021, was another qualifier, so 1 competition, and I ended up in the top 3. So I don't know if I was 1st, 2nd or 3rd, but it was a subject, Viz what you love, and I love watching the Marvel films. So I produced this Viz as my feeder round entry, which I'm now quite well known for. And this was a study into the time in Marvel, so the scenes from the films and how flashbacks and all from the different films all sort of interlink when they happen, and then moves through to character screen time and how the diverse nature of the films have changed over time and screen time of the diverse characters. So there's a little bit of a flow there. That got me to the final last year, so last October, November time, where I came runner-up. I was 2nd in the final with this visualization here. And this was on chart metric data looking at music, and I had produced a viz about how TikTok had been influencing music in recent years, especially through the pandemic. And then we've just had a qualifier that's just been completed in the last month. I did start it, but I failed to do anything, failed to complete it. And that was this viz here, where I was going to look at ballet. And I was doing a little bit with Adobe After Effects, cutting these ballerinas out of their videos. I just wasn't happy with the quality of this, but also I just was tired from the last final. This feed around this year has come around really quickly because they have moved the date of the conference. So this is my Iron Viz history. I've attempted 6 qualifiers or feed around entries. I produced 3 that actually got, I submitted 3 I scrapped, and all 3 of those went to the top 10, and then I made the final. So let's move on. So what is Iron Viz? If you haven't heard of it and you're coming here and you want to know more about the competition, well, Iron Viz is Tableau's own premier data viz competition. Typically you get between 100 and 300 entries per round to try and make it to the final. So it's a big deal in Tableau's world. It's a showcase event at the Tableau conference. How does it work? What do you need to do to enter the competition? So first of all, you've got those feeder and qualifier rounds that we've spoken about. In the past, there were 3 competitions, those 3 feeder rounds, but now there's only 1. They've changed the format. Top 3 go through. The topic is provided to you, and you have 1 month to build your visualization. But in that month, you have to find your own data set, and then you have to analyze it, work it, build the viz, and submit before the deadline. Your viz is then going to be marked out of 3 criteria: analysis, design, and storytelling. And we'll look into those later in this presentation. So that's the feeder round. If you get through into the top 3, you get to the final. And the 3 finalists compete at Tableau conference. In the past 2 years, that's been virtual, like my final last year. But normally you have to do it on stage in front of a live audience of thousands of people. The topic is given to you. You have 2 weeks to build, and the data is provided. So in your 2 weeks, you don't have to search for data. Normally you can't add any extra data to it. So you've got 2 weeks to build that. And once you've come up with your viz, you've then got to build that viz, replicate it in live in front of that audience at the conference in 20 minutes. And you've got to make sure that your viz is complete, because you also have to present that viz afterwards. So if you fail to finish building it in the 20 minutes and then start trying to present, you're going to come unstuck very quickly. So you've got 3-4 minutes to present that viz to the judges, and again you'll be analysed or you'll be marked on the same 3 criteria: analysis, design, and storytelling. So why should you enter it, and how should you approach it? Why should you put yourself through that? What do you have to gain? So this is something I probably should call out a little bit more on this slide, but self-learning is really what Iron Viz is about. Whether you're successful in completing your viz or unsuccessful, like you saw that I was a few times, you will always win because you will learn things. I've learned out of every single one of my entries, even the ones that I failed at. You will learn things about your own time management, how you would approach the competition next time. You'll learn that you maybe not spend so much time in designing things and more into the data analysis. You might learn something technical about Tableau. You might find a new chart. You might find something that you didn't know about Tableau, or you might learn something about a tool that you're using to help your analysis or help your design. It's definitely something that needs to be called out a lot stronger than I have here, but it's probably the big win for you to enter Iron Viz. And then the next one is something that we're not very good at in the Tableau community, or we sort of talk about it on the side. Fame and fortune. So let's be honest here. Making the final does wonders for your own profile and brand. People will start coming to you wanting to talk to you. They want you to be featured on their blog. You want you to talk to you on a podcast. You'll be featured in If Data Can Talk. Your profile will just rise. And that's fantastic if you're trying to build your own brand, if you're a freelancer or whatever. It's great. It's great for your company as well. And now recently, Tableau have upped the prize money. So $10,000 for the winner, that's not to be taken lightly. 5,000 for the second place, 2,000 for the third place. And there's more prizes that you get. So Tableau will give money to charity. You'll get a lot of swag coming from Tableau. You'll also get a free ticket to the conference. So definitely a couple of things there. You're self-learning and also building your own brand and prize money. It's definitely good reasons to enter. So what makes a good feeder entry? How do you get to the final? These are my thoughts, and you cannot look past the 3 criteria that they judge you on: analysis, design, and storytelling. Now, I've called out storytelling here a little stronger because I feel quite passionately about storytelling, and recently, having helped do some feedback on Iron Viz entries, storytelling is definitely something that gets overlooked, and it shouldn't be. It should be almost the underpinning of everything that you do in an Iron Viz entry. So let's look at analysis. I'm not a judge. I've never been a judge. I've not seen the criteria in detail for what they look for, but this is my own take on what I believe analysis should be. So you've got your data, you've got your topic. So what details, how can you show what you can glean from that data? What real interesting elements from that data can you bring out and analyze in your Viz? And are those bites of information fully explained? The amount of times that you'll see a Iron Viz entry where they will present an interesting looking chart, but they won't actually help the reader through that chart with some annotations or introductory text to the chart. You need to explain to help people understand what are the key elements of that analysis. Don't just present a chart and think that's good enough to get me some analysis chart points. And then, does your analysis that you present fit into the story that you're trying to tell? This is key. All these 3 elements are interlinked, and you'll see that as we talk through these. So that analysis needs to fit. You can't just throw in other bits of information that don't really help your story that you're trying to take people through. This is where I'll keep talking about story, but story underpins it all. Design. Design is not about, in my opinion, about flashy visuals, flashy new charts, or funky Figma backgrounds or Illustrator backgrounds. Design is a lot more, for me, about, are you presenting your analysis using best practices? So are you reducing the number of colors you're using? Does your colors work well together? Are you reducing your grid lines, removing unnecessary elements? That's best practice around design. Does the visual elements that you actually add into your Viz support the reading of the Viz or detract from it? So if you do bring in a Illustrator background or some imagery that you're going to put around your analysis, is it overpowering? Does it work well? Does it help? You've got to consider that. And then also consider the structure of your Viz. That it aids the flow of the story. So it's not minute details with design and everything. You've got to have a look at the whole picture and look at how your Viz flows and how the design is helping your reader go from one piece of analysis to the next. That, for me, is design. And then we come to storytelling. Storytelling, as I've said, underpins it all. And this, in my opinion, is one that is most overlooked because it's less clear how you do it. So my tips on storytelling is take a journalistic approach and consider what you are trying to tell your reader at the start of the build. What is the story you're trying to go to? Does your analysis lead to a conclusion to a key issue or a bigger picture? Because that's really interesting. If you can start off with your data analysis, and as you're flowing through your Viz, you come to a more interesting point that maybe the reader wasn't aware of at the start, that's interesting storytelling. does your story flow or is it fragmented? You've got to think about the order that you're presenting that analysis. So it feels natural that you move on from one part to the next. And then if you can invoke emotion from your reader, that really makes it powerful. So if you can get people invested into the topic that you're talking about, even better. So here, I'm just going to break out of the presentation a second, and I'm going to just show a couple of feeder entries that I think are particularly good for this. I'm just going to refresh them both because they'll probably need it. So the first one is from Simon Beaumont, and then we've got the feeder entry from Joshua Smith. So let's see whose is quicker to load. Okay, Simon's is quicker. So well done, Simon. This is Simon's entry that got for the 2020 feeder round that got him into the final. So this was the top feeder round entry, and Simon finished second in the final like I did. And the reason I'm calling this out is this is an example of a good feeder round entry, because if you look at it, Simon is using a lot of visual best practice here. He's using a lot of white space. The weight of the fonts are very sort of mid-range. They're not heavy, they're not too light. There's a lot of spacing, and he's using these visual guides of this line to take you down through the analysis. But from an analysis and storytelling point of view, his subject is the Human Development Index. So naturally, you've got to start by explaining what it is. And then he goes through talking about different elements that are affecting that Human Development Index. Without going through all of it in detail, if we stop on this particular section, this is where this analysis point of fully explaining what you're presenting comes into it. So he's got a scatter plot here. He's reduced the elements on the axes using design, but what he's doing is he's calling out here some different bands and he's explaining it here. He's not just leaving it to interpretation, he's telling us what's going on. This is good design and good analysis to help flow that story that he's telling. But the real master of storytelling is Joshua Smith. If I just put this into full screen. So this was 2019 agriculture feeder round. If you remember at the start, I came second in that. This was the first entry. So this beat me to the final that year. And what Joshua does really well here is he takes you through his story. He starts off at a high level and he's calling out from a US position of what's happening with crops and pasture land. And then he's calling out with his interesting titles here that he's saying there's an interesting relationship between pasture land and cropland. And then he's telling you exactly why. Then he's telling you, but it's not simple. There's just pasture land and cropland. And he's explaining why. Then he's saying, well, what crops are being grown in these areas? And then he's looking at the relationship, but you can see how he's moving you through the story. Not just he's not just presenting the data saying there are so many crops in this state and there are, you know, of this type. He's telling a story and he's taking us through it with him, but he's using his own knowledge on the subject and he's presenting that really well, and it works fantastically. So I just wanted to call those two out as a good example of feed around entries. If I come back into presenting the I'll just click through this. So we're saying analysis, design, storytelling. We've just gone through this. Storytelling. I'm going to call this out a little bit stronger because not many people seem to address it. So the process that I personally would like to see people sort of take is something along this line. Analyze your data using Tableau. Research to find out how that data could lead into a bigger story or another data set to make it interesting to flow into a subject that or a conclusion, or a plan how you want to take that reader through the data to that storyline conclusion. So you've got to plan it first, then use that design to make it easier. Pick your charts to support that analysis. Don't just pick your charts because they look fun. and then order that analysis to bring your reader through the storyline. This is, for me, the sort of underpinning of that storytelling that people should do. Storytelling with data would put it like this. Understand the context of your data, choose, or your subject, choose the effective visual that presents that, eliminate all that clutter, so you design best practice, focus the attention, and then tell the story. Andy Kirk, data visualization expert, wrote the book Data Visualization, says this: stories are usually constructed upon the notion of movement, change, or narrative. And that's really interesting. It's something that you should really consider when starting out, is how you can get that change in that movement, the change in the data you're showing. So a bar chart alone is not storytelling, but if you have a bar chart that changes over time, then that is adding that little bit of storytelling element to it. Oh, I didn't want to do that, wrong button. Because we'd like to see it a second time. Here it is. So you've made a good feed around entry and you've made it to the final. What would you expect to happen? How does it work? You've got 2 weeks to explore, design, and build. Where did I go? 2 weeks to explore, design, and build and optimize your Viz. It's a short period of time. It's completely different to the feed around. They are like two separate different competitions. And that sometimes puts people off entering because they don't want to go through to the final because they think that they might not be able to handle the way the final is set up. 2 weeks is a short space of time. In that 2 weeks, you'll be given a topic. You'll have to, and the data, you'll have to then manipulate that data via Tableau Prep. You'll spend as much time in Tableau Prep as you do in Tableau Desktop. I had never used Tableau Prep before, and neither had Lisa, who won the final. And we both had to learn it within that 2 weeks to be able to manipulate the data that we were given, because it's not clean data. It never is. You might have to join a number of tables. I think we had, I can't remember, I think it was like 30 different data sets we had to join in Tableau Prep before we could even analyze it. Then we would go into Tableau. You'd go into Tableau, start building, pulling things around, seeing what stories you can find. And then you might have to have a redesign and rethink and go back into Tableau Prep to change the data. You'll work that, it's very cyclical, you'll do that a number of times before you think you found a final Viz that you're ready to work with. And then you'll test run it, see can you build it within the 20 minutes? And invariably you won't be able to, there's too much in there. So you'll have to go back to redesigning, changing the data, rebuilding until you find that you have hit that 20-minute marker. Normally you'd want to build in a buffer of a couple of minutes in case things go wrong in the live build. So you have to change your design. And then you'll do a test run for the presentation. So you'll have that final design and then you'll be talking about it. But what you'll find is that you'll have too much in there and you'll have to either cut your presentation or cut the design back again. And you're back into that again. All of this is going on in 2 weeks before you'd finally get to a Viz that's worthy to go to the final. But on that 2 weeks, you have a whole host of other things you've got to do. Tableau will throw you blog posts that they want responses on. So you'll have to spend a bit of your evening working on blog answers in this time when you're really short on time to come up with a final Viz. Just very high stress at this point. You'll have to record home life videos for the show, for the Iron Viz show. Record yourself at home and your kids, or walking the dog like I did. Record videos for the final. So in the opening of the Iron Viz, last year when I was in it, we had to record ourselves turning to the camera, shouting Viz, doing a number of things related to music, and then they would cut them and put them into the show at the start. But you have to take your time out to record those, and it just takes time. You'll end up questioning the data set as well. So you'll have calls to try and understand certain elements of the data set. And then you'd also have to set up tech screens where they will give you a laptop to work on in the final, and you have to set it up to make sure everything's working. And with the virtual finals, it was even more. They would send you all sorts of recording equipment, lighting that you would have to set up. And all of this goes on in that 2 weeks that you're trying to build your final Viz. It's a lot there. So you've built your Viz, but you need to speed it up. What are my top tips for speeding up a Viz for the final? Push as many calculations to Tableau Prep. All the non-dynamic calculations should be pushed back into Tableau Prep so that Tableau doesn't have to do any of that heavy lifting of calculating. The only things Tableau is going to calculate is what I call dynamic calculations, those that rely on parameters. So that interaction that you're going to showcase your Viz or the users will see it. Push anything back that you can into Tableau Prep. So I had a table calculation in Tableau in one of my charts, which was a moving average. I had to work out how to write a moving average into Tableau Prep so that I could just plot it rather than get Tableau to do that table calculation live. Because the last thing you want to do is have Tableau having that little ring of death where it's calculating, and if you're in a live final, you don't want to be stopping, waiting for Tableau to finish doing what it's going to do. Duplicate your sheets. So set up the formatting once. Formatting of the worksheets takes time. It's a lot of clicks, removing grid lines, putting in colors, removing background colors, whatever. Set it up once, and if you can duplicate that through to the other worksheets, then you'll save yourself a lot of time. Use the default settings in Tableau as much as possible. So default settings are meaning things like when you're building out the final Viz on the dashboard. So padding, just leave it at the default for around top, bottom, and left and right, if you can do. If you don't need to fiddle with the default settings, then you're saving yourself clicks, and saving clicks saves time. And prepare your calculations. So I don't mean this in Tableau Prep. This is where, when you bring your calculations that you're writing into Tableau, you want to prepare them ready for them to be dragged onto this worksheet. So by this, I mean, right click on the calculations, convert them into the right setup. So there might be a dimension. You don't want to drag onto a worksheet a measure, and then it says some measure, and then you have to right click on that to convert it to a discrete dimension, whatever. It's prepare it first, do it up front to save yourself clicks. And then consider that work order. The order in which you build is critical in the final, and it's one of the big speed tips. So you'll have to work this out as you're building. You'll test it, what to build first. But a good example is if you're just dragging and building out your chart, and then you're planning to filter that chart. Don't drag it and build out those measures first. Put the filter on first, so you limit the data that you're building. It will work quicker. Consider all of those orders. Those are my top tips on speed tipping. And my lessons learned from the final. So having been in the final, what have I learned from that experience? If I could go back and do it again, tell myself, what could I do? What would I think about? Less is more. Limit the number of stories to reduce the data and focus your build. So that's something I did wrong. I had 8 or 10 different data stories in my final build. And in my presentation, I spoke about one of them. I didn't even touch all the other 7 or 9. I only spoke about one. So the rest of them were almost dead space. I'm not saying just stick to one story. I wanted the others there as context and initial builds and initial test runs of the presentation. I was talking about those data stories, but I just didn't have time to talk about them all. So consider reducing it down to focus that final build so that those who are seeing it for the first time will actually understand what you're doing there. Avoid ambiguity. Don't skim past crucial points on why you built the Viz as you did or the design choices that you made. I got called out by one of the judges in the final quite late on in the build, saying he didn't quite understand why I chose the data stories that I did when there appeared to be more lines that I was showing that potentially fit what I was saying. Well, I did have that in my original presentation, but I cut it out because I was running out of time in the presentation. And that was a bad choice because I essentially took a call just to quicken it all up. But it was a bad call because I left that ambiguity over what I was doing. crystal clarity. Call out exactly what you're doing. These people who see your vizzes will see it for the very first time. I was trying to create a little bit of mystery with my title. I didn't want to give the game away, because the way my final viz worked, it opened up to more analysis, to the final conclusion. But in hindsight, that wasn't particularly great. What I should have done, particularly in my title, was I should have said how TikTok was influencing music rather than tech influencing music, because then that would really clearly show that I was using TikTok color stylings, and it would be for people seeing it for the first time who maybe hasn't watched the Viz build or the presentation, they would understand immediately what's happening there. So those are three key points. And this is an early view of my Iron Viz final build. And what I'm trying to show here is that you cannot keep everything in there in Viz. You have to take stuff out to quicken it up. This particular area here with the area charts, all these areas in orange was what made it through to the final build. All of this narrative was taken away because I was trying to be mysterious about it. But what these other grey areas were bits of analysis I really wanted to talk about. These orange areas were where TikTok had influenced their initial track, gave them that initial surge of popularity. And that was always followed up with their subsequent tracks. And those subsequent tracks would be quite popular. And these big popular ones were where a new artist would follow up their initial hit, having it been influenced by TikTok, with doing a collaboration with an established artist. All of this was great analysis that I wanted to call out in the final, but I couldn't do it because these extra areas were slowing down the Viz build. They slowed it down from a number of clicks or point of view, but also the calculations and the extra data slowed down the build. So I'm just calling this out, that you've got to be really clear when you're building a final Viz what you're going to present at the end, because in the end, I wanted to talk about all of this, but I didn't. I ended up having to take a lot of it out. And that's a big learning, that when you've got to that final build, you've got to step back. And I didn't do this. I do this in all my other vizzes that are not final vizzes. I step back from it and I look at it with a sort of a clean eye and say, does that work? With the final build, because I was tight on time, I didn't ever get that chance to step back and go, does this all make sense? Am I being clear here? I just had to run with it because time was short. So I just wanted to call that out. And that, I believe, is it. So thank you for listening. I hope that's been helpful from what is required to enter the Iron Viz competition. If you have any questions or want to contact me, my details are there in the bottom corner, and I'm happy to field any questions you might have.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. It is amazing. And yeah, I really like your speed typing. We can definitely adopt them by creating dashboards in our daily business. It's totally makes sense. And also, I really like your self-learning. And I think this idea is very good, that it doesn't matter if you will be finalist or if you win the Iron Viz, you will be always the winner. So the way is a goal. And I think the most important win is actually that you educate yourself in analysis, design, and storytelling. So, but I just wonder how the participation in Iron Viz has changed your professional life.
Oh, wow. Definitely has. So from a skill level point of view in Tableau, putting myself through Iron Viz really helped me learn about the tool, because I was pushing myself to try doing different things. Even in the earlier earlier feed around entries, so going away from the one that people know me for, the recent one, the Rivers of Time one, the Marvel one, looking at those couple of early entries, so the agriculture one, I was learning so much about the tool and how to create the visuals that I was looking for. I had a bar chart that was coming out of the page using polygons into another bar chart into lines. It was all very fancy, but stuff I had never done before. And the same with the golden record. I replicated something that Nadia Bremer had done, and that was using a lot of trigonometry, stuff I'd never done before. And this all really helped me upskill myself. And from a professional side of things, people at the time I was working at Dyson, people recognized the stuff that I was doing. They saw that, they were seeing it on LinkedIn. They were coming, going, oh, congratulations, that was fantastic. You know, from a professional side, people from other analytics teams were recognizing that I was there in Dyson, and they were coming to me. And then you just raise that profile, and then you get new jobs from it, and you just move up. So honestly, I think it's one of the best things I've done, is put myself through the process, which is probably why I'm still doing it, why I attempted the one this year so soon after the final, was because I still have that connection with Iron Viz, and I still know that it's a good process.
Yeah, okay, totally understand. But let's think about people who are interested in to reach the same level in data visualization what you already have.
Okay.
Would you please advise something? It would be also great if you could describe your learning path, how you came to these skills, what you have today.
Okay. I think I've got a very unique sort of background in that I did a design engineering degree. So that design engineering gave me a good base of, I was very creative just generally growing up. I wanted to do design. And so that design engineering sort of helped that side of things. But what it really gave me was, it gave me that analytical, logical sort of, it really strengthened that side of things, because I was having to work with engineering calculations, thermodynamics, robotics, all sorts of things that I just wasn't comfortable in. I then moved into business analysis in my career and finance. And again, that built that logical stuff. And then Tableau came in, and I started to reconnect with that design side of me again. And that sort of eclectic sort of career path, I think, has given me all the sort of skills that I can pull together to do good data visualization, because data visualization is underpinned by maths and the logic. I was never particularly strong at maths. I still am not strong at maths, even though you might look at some of the stuff I do and think, wow, how does he do that? I think what it is I stick with it. I will look at what other people do, and I think I can do that. If they can do it, surely I can do it. It's just logic. And I'll stick working at a problem for a long time, which is probably why I don't produce very many things regularly, because I have to think about it a lot. But what I did early on in my data, to keep it short, what I did early on in my data career was I really tried to push myself with visualizations. If you scroll down my Tableau public to the early side of things, there'll be a lot of non-best practice charts that I'm using, and that's because I was learning them. I was pushing myself to go through the blogs and learn them, rather than connect to a template that does it all for me. So I was forcing myself to get out of my comfort zone and do things. And then this is something that I really like to do, is I like to mix it up from a style point of view. I don't want to just be known for the one style of data viz. So I'll try things, and that's what my Tableau public space is for. And I'll do stuff in one style, I'll do stuff in a business dashboard, I'll do something in another style, I'll try a radial chart. And it just happens that that kind of really lends itself nicely to Iron Viz, because you don't know what topic is going to come through. So if you're going to have to style something to a particular topic, if you've been practicing in number of different styles, then you'll be able to probably hit it quite well. If you've just kept doing the one thing because people like the viz that you did and you'll replicate that style, when it comes to doing Iron Viz, breaking away from that one style that you're known for, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, totally understand. And it is really hard to believe that you are not so strong in the math. Maybe one day we need to talk about what do you mean with strong in the math.
So I don't know how well I don't know how well you know like the English school system, but we have something called after 16 you do the A levels.
Okay.
And I did a maths A level because I needed to do it because I was doing physics, and I nearly failed that maths A level. I got a D or an E or something in it, and I'm just not good at it. I did statistics at university in engineering, and I think I ended up I scraped a pass on statistics with like I think it was 40% to pass or something, and I'm just not naturally good at it, but I stick at it because I'm determined.
Okay, last question from my side.
Yeah.
You have already mentioned the Tableau Public, and you showed us at the beginning your amazing work. I just wonder where you just get this inspiration for your work, because you can create both creative dashboards and some business dashboards.
It's a really good question because it's not often I look to recreate other people's stuff. So I mentioned Nadia Bremer. She does some really fantastic stuff. I replicated something of that in the Golden Record Iron Viz entry. I will go to Pinterest and look at infographics and things like that. Just more from a typography and colors and that sort of style point of view to get that sort of inspiration. But in terms of creatively working at Tableau in business dashboards or those, it's usually I'll just come across an idea or a problem that I want to solve, and I think, well, I'm sure I could do it. Like for an example, before the show hide container option in Tableau was available for tiled containers, I wanted to create a business dashboard where you could have a filter panel that could be collapsed or not collapsed. And I did that in my Tableau public profile. I've got a Viz that does that before it was a feature in Tableau. But I had to really sort of think about how could you sort of trick the eye. And it's all about floating objects and disappearing when there's no data. It's, using parameters, but you have to think around that problem. I quite like problem solving, and not everything creative-wise has to be visual. You can use your creativity in business dashboards to solve issues, to get it to do what you want it to do. Inspiration in that side of things, obviously Tableau Public, you get inspired by other people like the Adam McCanns and the Luke Stankeys of the world who really push the tool to the limits. I quite like doing that as well. But normally I've got a business problem or something in a business dashboard point of view that I want to solve.
We did have a very similar question in the Q&A section. What's your inspiration for your business? Maybe other data experts, art, could you recommend anything? I think we have answered that just now, right? Like it's Pinterest and Tableau Public, and follow basically the other experts in the fields, particularly in Tableau Public, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The other thing I did was and it's really bad. I've got a memory like a goldfish sometimes. I don't remember very well. I watched a talk by one of the non-Tableau like data viz experts, and they were talking about how don't be limited by the tool that you're using when you're designing something creatively. Just go to pen and paper, draw it out, think about maybe this measure could be a circle, maybe this could be positioned over here. Just put it on paper and think about how you would want to visualize it in a perfect world, and then take that and work out how do you then make the tool do it. And that's something I do. I have a book where I draw out design ideas. I don't particularly have any use for them. Quite often I'll just be drawing, going, oh, that would look quite interesting if I had a Viz that did this. So quite often I have those sort of things, and that's something I want to do more of, is build out that, I call it a design playbook, to something that if I'm stuck for inspiration, I can go to and go, oh yeah, that drawing that I did a while ago, that looks quite interesting, that could work here.
So this is the Holy Bible. You can offer.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's just something that I haven't done for a while. A few months now is go into that book and draw out design ideas. But I think it's something that's really, if you're looking to do stuff or represent data outside of the normal sort of charts that people are used to seeing, and you want to move into more of what those freelance data artists do, then that's kind of the approach you've got to take. But even working through that approach, there's always stuff that applies back to your day job. There's always reasons why. I used to do data posters at Dyson. So it wouldn't be, showing bar charts of what's happening in the data. It'll be more interesting radial charts or Sankey type things. So there will always be a reason why you can use that sort of creative element.
Just for the rest of the audience, please feel free to post your questions. So we do have a Q&A section down at the bottom of the screen. You could just put your question there. Alternatively, if you want to come up to the and speak and basically post your question with voice, you just use the raise hand button and we can give you speakers rights. That is not a problem at all. And while we're waiting for more questions to come in, I will also have one. You put very specific emphasis on storytelling. Now, how do you, and storytelling is obviously something that is paramount for that type of Iron Viz experience, right? You get a data set or you have a data set and you need to guide the people through. How challenging do you find to apply that to business dashboards, where on business dashboards, you often need to answer multiple questions, right? Like it's a sales dashboard and there's not that one specific story that you can highlight and guide through, but it's kind of a one size fits all for multiple regions, multiple business lines. How challenging do you find it? And would you also say that sometimes it's not possible?
It is challenging, and what I would say for that is that the communication with whoever the stakeholder is key in that element, because ultimately they're the people that are going to be using that dashboard. They're the people that are you can't just build those dashboards in isolation without understanding what they want from it. You can get the data set and think, well, this will be quite a nice story if I take it from here to here to here. But so often that you'll build those dashboards and then a lot of elements we just pulled out going, we're not going to use that, we don't need that. You've got to have that communication up front and during the process to say, is this going to work for you? Quite often what I've done in the past is we would build a landing page or something to a business dashboard that will talk about, these are the available dashboards that we've got in this workbook. This is where we expect you to start your analysis, and you can go down these various tracks. And then from a single dashboard, it could be a single chart or it could be a couple of charts on that dashboard, depending on the detail. You can then click on a mark, move to the next level of detail, the next question to answer. And that's kind of how you have to sort of work through that communication with the stakeholder to design the flow of the story. Usually it works from a very high level view down, going deeper and deeper into that sort of analysis. So say it's products, you might look at the overall sales performance of a particular region or category. And then as you start stepping through the levels of your dashboard, you might go into the SKU level data of individual products, which products are underpinning what we're seeing from a category level. You will probably never ever always get all of that into one single dashboard. That's where your inspiration on business dashboards on Tableau Public can be quite limited, because what people do on Tableau Public is they'll do a very clean KPI dashboard, only a couple of lines on their bar chart, maybe a little spark line. You do have those sort of dashboards in business, but more often than not, I've found you have the dashboards that real analysts or the stakeholders want to actually go into that data and look at all of those marks, change it, move it around. And so that analysis or that inspiration from Tableau Public is a little bit lacking, because I don't think it quite represents what happens in business.
Gotcha. Yes, perfect. I like really great advice, particularly like the idea of having basically a landing page and use the landing page to guide the story, while the individual dashboards then, by their nature of being business dashboards, often have to be more sort of one size fits all, but having the overall flow and which dashboard to pick and then which dashboard then to go next is really great advice.
So what tends to work well with a landing page is you can show all the available dashboards. You can go directly into a dashboard and start pulling the filters and parameters to work the view, or you can tell them that you can start from the start, you can select a mark and it will carry that category or whatever through to the next dashboard using the interactivity. So there's different ways you can step through it. So you can walk yourself through the data story using the flow, or from the landing page, you can go directly to the element that you're looking for. So it's a really nice sort of way to help people through, and also visually, you're then able to represent what's actually happening with the dashboard that you've got.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm being conscious of time here. We're running towards the top of the hour, and I know people have meetings coming up. So I just want to read out this. There was one more comment in chat. Thanks for really inspiring topic. So I forward on the thanks to Sam and everyone. You'll get an email with the recording of this. I really appreciate participation, and also the people who will be watching this on the recording. Please follow Sam. We have posted links on the chat on where to follow his blog and so on. I really, Sam, appreciate you being here today and sharing your insights, and hope we'll have this again sometime, and maybe even in person at a conference or something.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that to meet you both in person. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it. I hope other people who have joined us or watched the video will enjoy it too.
All right. Thank you, and folks.
And good day for you. Bye bye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye.